And we are recording. And we're off. Right. Thanks for everyone for coming along to our show and tell for the platform APIs. I'll step through. So previously on platform APIs, everyone loves a good Dallas GIF. I was going to hum the theme tune, but I'm far too young to remember that. The last time we spoke a bit more about our roadmap, so where we were going with the APIs, what were our next platform APIs, and what bits of functionality we were going to provide, and also the fact that we were going to start wiring this into actually some clients and some front end applications to kind of proof in the pudding, if you like. There was a bit of talk about data contracts from Rashmi, which we've been having with various teams, and the various APIs that we've been working on. So the Housing Resident Information API, which is universal housing, the Cautionary Alert API, again from UH, pulling in cautionary alerts, and kind of this overarching platform API, which would be kind of pulling in information from all of the other APIs. And a bit of looking into the write operations, which was a bit of a no-go really for Academy. We found it was going to be a bit too challenging to do in this particular project. So what have we done about that? What else have we been doing? And this bit here is still me. So we started looking at the tenancy information API. So most of the universal housing and the kind of housing applications we have kind of pull off of this tenancy information API. So we kind of defined our response objects by Morella did a lot of digging around in some of the many APIs that do the same thing. This is the repetition we're trying to kind of iron out by using the platform APIs. And there are about 3 or 4 different APIs which pulled in this particular tenancy information from universal housing. So on the right hand side there, you can see just the fields, and it's not a lot of fields, but again, it's replicated in 3 or 4 different places. So this is what we're going to be pulling out for the tenancy information API. And I think we've got Alex working on the view record for that API endpoint. So he's building up the API to pull this information out. We had a bit of a gotcha because the tenancy reference, or tag ref as it's often referred to in universal housing, is made up in a way you can see here, this 1234561. And that slash it looks, as you might notice in URLs, actually appears in the path of APIs, and that can cause problems with .NET Core, the technology we're using. So we had to kind of make a kind of decision on how we were going to allow someone to use that parameter within queries. So we've decided to replace the slash with a hyphen. And then when we present it back to the client, it would have the slash in it. There were a few options for us, and this felt like the least worst option, as long as it was documented, which is what we'll do. We'll tell developers, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And also, as part of this, we would need to do what we've done with a lot of the other APIs, which is have continuous migration from live UH into the cloud. So the tenancy reference, the tenagree table from UH will be pulled into our Postgres database in the cloud. So now we're moving on to testing all of our production APIs, which I think is Louise.
Yep, thanks. So we've been deploying the new APIs to production and testing them to make sure that they're functioning from end to end. And as well as the big wins, like the much speedier database queries that are mentioned here, really impressive discoveries and changes there, and important configuration updates implemented as well. This is also usually where 1 or 2 tiny and tricky to find issues will arise. So there's been some very patient work going on resolving maybe small typos, maybe uppercase versus lowercase database table and column names, for example, just to shout out some of the work that's been done, requiring lots and lots of patience. It's obviously a simple thing once you find it, but really hard to find. So yeah, lots has been done on that sort of thing. And it's just a really good moment when a new application runs its complete sort of workflow from end to end for the first time. So that's been really satisfying.
Cool, thank you, Louise. Now we're on to data obfuscation, which is easy for you to say. For Alex.
Thank you. So we are currently using mostly the live data, the production data, whenever we're testing our APIs and stuff, and we don't want to do that. We want to use good anonymous data. So we looked into some options, did some spikes, spent some time looking at ways to do that, and made a small proof of concept for one idea. The problem is we need the data that comes out, so the random data. We could just randomize it, but that means that tables that would link would be sort of matching other tables even when there's no primary key or foreign key. They wouldn't match anymore if everything was just randomized independently. So we need to find a way to do it so that tables will still match after the anonymizing has been done. This is part of a sort of more large, what's the word? Imperative to just cleanse all the test data sources and remove real data from them. So we put together some possible solutions and had a chat about it, and we selected to go forward with using an AWS product called DMS that will that handles migrating data, and we're going to try and slot our anonymizing process into that. So that's where we currently are with the process. So we'll see how that goes. That should be good.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. And so what is even more exciting is Ben.
Absolutely. So the Resident Information API is the top-level API where all of these, all the other work that we're doing is going to come together. And we completed the first version of a list endpoint. So what does that mean? It means that we can get data returned from Mosaic, Academy, and Housing Resident Platform APIs. We've got a general structure as to how that's going to come back, and we have been able to receive data back in testing. Everything can be queried by first name, last name, and address and postcode, and it returns all matches for Hackney residents, and that's across 3 of our biggest data sources. So that is a huge win for this project in terms of bringing a lot of disparate information together and making it, putting it in a situation that can be presented to some front-end systems. As the project progresses, we're also going to be adding more data sources to our scope to increase the use and utility of the system.
Cool. Thank you, Ben. I think we've got Emma next.
Yeah. So yeah, this is exciting. We've completed our first integration with another service, and we decided to do that with SingleView. So for those of you that don't know, in SingleView you can query by like first and last name, and then SingleView will go off and speak to like a number of systems and look for that person in those systems, and then return a list of records that match. And then we have replaced that search functionality in Academy, so like one of the systems that it searches is Academy, with our API, as previously it was directly contacting the Academy database, which isn't ideal. Now it's got a nice new shiny platform API to use. We're still doing a bit of regression testing, but it's looking good at the moment, and we've started already on a second integration with SingleView with like a different part of Academy data, and then we're looking at which other APIs we can use to integrate with SingleView as well, possibly the housing resident information.
Cool, thank you. Now to other projects with Rashmi.
So the other project that we are looking to use platform APIs is My Rent Account. So possibly we'll be trying to replace the existing one. I know the team has already worked on the replatforming one, but we can expand it and make use of the platform API what we are developing. So it's for Housing Resident Information API and the Tenancy API. Similarly with Manage a Tenancy Hub replatforming project, we can use these for Housing Resident Information API again, Tenancy API and cautionary alerts. So manage. Similarly with the manage arrears, sorry, not areas, arrears replatform project, we should be able to use the housing resident information. So what we are trying to say is like is platform API, we can use it in different model, different project services going forward. So I can expand you to on the next slide, please. So I know it's little small, but what you can see in the top level is different services. So if we have Repairs Hub, My Rent Account, Manage a Tenancy, NCC, Single View, Manage Areas. They all are pretty much different services from the same data set. So what we are trying to say is like we wanted to focus on the benefits of Platform API that they present not only for one service, but for numerous services from different data sets. We always mention about the Platform API advantage that is reusable, being consistent across, and also we also emphasize on the fact that it's a holistic representation of the domain specified, which means it's a foundation layer of the entire API ecosystem, allowing the higher level APIs to access the required data sources below. That's the second layer. So we do understand it can be difficult to visualize the benefit sometime. Hence, what we thought, Mirella and I, we thought we'll come up with this usage model so that you can see, you can see the advantage itself. In short, what I'm trying to say is that this diagram speaks for itself. So you can see the different Platform APIs that can be used in different services going forward. So what I'm trying to say is like they can help us to reduce the cost of development, and it just gives you a better return of investment, to be honest. So as you can see this from this diagram, so yeah, that's pretty much the whole basically the whole understanding of why we came up with this usage model, just to depict what we are trying to achieve from this Platform API project.
Thank you, Rashmi. And I think we're over to Mirella.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Another very exciting piece of work we did during our last sprint is discuss about our authorization model. So currently, our APIs use API keys to manage access, which is not in accordance with the best security practices, and we knew we wanted to improve that as part of this project. So now we had our first workshop, as you can see from the screenshot. We've discussed the set of features and user stories we want our authorization model to include. And there's quite a lot of them. So we decided that in our first iteration, we're gonna focus on a subset of them that form up the core functionality before we expand it further. So that core functionality includes token generation API, which will generate service-based tokens, which will have no expiry date. A service-based token is essentially a token that will be provided to the service that will be calling our APIs rather than to the users using that service. So it's not individual-based. And then we'll need a second API, which will be validating this token. That API will be used as a Lambda authorizer. A Lambda authorizer is essentially an extra layer of security before the request reaches our actual API. And the way it would work is the service, when they invoke an API, they will supply a token, which we'll call the Lambda authorizer, which will be our token auth API. We're gonna validate the token, make sure it's a valid token, then extract the data from it and query a database to ensure that the service has access to the given API they are making a request towards. So as I mentioned, we'll also have a database. The reason for having a database is because it will allow us to immediately revoke tokens if need be, and would also be able to run reports on it. So we'll be able to see how many access tokens we have that are valid and being used, who has created those access tokens, who has approved those access tokens. And yeah, I think we decided the reporting on those would be really important. Having said that, like I said, this will be the first iteration of it, but we do have in mind that we would like to add a second authorization flow in the future, which will be based on individuals. And for that, we'll be using our Hackney Google Auth implementation.
Thank you, Mirella. And then we're on to questions. And a period of silence. Question from Chris. Do we need to think about how we manage changes? Systems like Academy change frequently and at speed to keep up with benefits legislation. I wonder how we manage the testing of these platform APIs. Yes is the answer to that, I guess. If it's
yes.
If it's going to make changes to the database schemes.
I agree, and that's what we need to start thinking as well for going forward. But my question is like, how often do we know Academy doesn't change much often, as we all are aware about it. But my question will be, how often do we have these kind of legislation changes going forward?
So Academy probably updates on a frequency of every 6 weeks, something like that, the system will get patched.
Right.
So it's quite frequently, and while the underlying database structure doesn't change a lot, I'm just slightly conscious of that. For example, in their last release that went in, they removed 4 columns randomly from a table.
Right.
So that's just, if you like, the type of thing that we perhaps want to try and keep an eye on. And yeah, think about how going forwards when we have these academy releases, how we test them.
Of course, yeah. So because we're using DMS, we should be able to cover that all. But yeah, going forward, yeah, definitely.
I think as well with the Academy, we're pulling from the mirror, which is the SQL Server mirror that gets created from the Ingres Academy database. So I guess that would break. If that breaks, then we know that the Academy. I mean, it's not the greatest alerting solution in the world, but there's an intermediary step before the APIs break anyway.
Yeah. So we'll be able to figure it straight away from that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Emma Harley, a similar question to Chris. How do we plan to support the platform APIs long term with so many disparate, independently changing data sources? I'll let Rashmi answer that.
Yeah, of course, we are thinking in that direction going forward. We know, but how? This is the same question again. How often do these data sources changes? We know UH doesn't change much often. We know Academy now. We know Academy changes every 6 weeks, and saying that we do have some columns being dropped out, but we know that there will be certain scenarios that we'll be handling before API actually break. But there's other systems like LLPG. There's I think this Mosaic. How often do they change? Do we think that's what we're asking other people to let us know about it, so that we can visualize it, we can plan before ahead, and we can draw some kind of like alerting system, monitoring that we'll get to know that something has broken, that something has changed, and it will let us know. So please let us know about it. Yeah.
I think also from the support perspective as well, looking at the project, we've got the MadeTech devs in there, but we've also got 7. I think it's 7 anyway, isn't it? 7 Hackett.
Yeah, 6 Hackett.
Yeah, who are actually involved in the development of this. So that's, I think that's a pretty good spread of knowledge across the team.
True.
And yeah, so hopefully the support will not be. It's not going to just come down to that one person who's on holiday.
Exactly, and we should be able to pick it up quickly, and this is the only reason why we know about it. But if you guys know about something, that's especially with the application support team, if we know things will be changing quickly, we need to know about it so that we can ensure that the structure is there. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I may add to that,
obviously
communication between these teams is key, but also we have already in place canaries and alerts and monitoring. So if something does go down, we'll get notified. It runs every few minutes, so we'll get notified very quickly about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's I think Emma, to your question, Mirella just informed that we do have canaries and alerting systems, so we should be able to get it quickly, and we'll ensure that the relevant team members from different teams will be there. So yeah.
Yeah, Emma's spreading that. Yeah,
completely agree. Yeah, completely agree with your point, Emma. Completely. Yeah.
It's revisiting the handover with some of the projects we've had handovers with teams and things like that. I guess that needs to be revisited, doesn't it?
Of course, yeah.
Any other questions? I think that's a no then. Okay, this will be, as I say, this has been recorded, so it will be shared on the usual spaces. And what does that MVP for access look like? Emma in with a late breaking question. So is that Emma? Is that referencing? Oh, so yeah, so that's referencing. Let me go back to it. This here, then, this authorization model. What does that MVP look like? Mirella.
Yes, please, Mirella.
Yeah. Or I was going to say, go on, Mirella. Do you want to take it?
Yes, so like I said, we want to only focus on a small subset in the beginning to build the core functionalities, which is essentially building 2 APIs. one API will be generating tokens based on the information supplied to it. And that token would then be used and supplied as a header whenever an API is being invoked. That header would then be passed to a Lambda authorizer, which is our second API, which will validate that the token is valid, and it would see also the payload data of the header. Based on that, we'll query a database and we validate, yes, the service that's calling, let's say, transactions API should have access to transaction. The token is valid, has not been revoked. So go ahead and continue with the request, or no, reject access and throw a 401.
And to begin with, we were saying we probably wouldn't bother with a front end, although general consensus was that amount of functionality probably wouldn't necessarily be particularly difficult. So all the reporting, mass deactivation, etc., is later. Yeah, although it would probably be more manual at first, I guess. If we needed to do reporting, we could run reports off the database manually, and the same with the deactivation. But then, the whole front end thing potentially would. I mean, the dream is to have a nice administration front end, as well as having people being able to, as in outside people, being able to sign up for their own.
So self-service for all the APIs, basically. So one shop, and that should handle most of the things. So that's the ultimate dream. But obviously, that dream consists of various steps, as you have already mentioned. There's a lot of features in it. But yeah, we are taking a baby step at this stage and starting with small. And hopefully, we'll be able to get the bigger picture soon. Yeah. Which
feeds into the obfuscation piece that Alex was talking about, which is where it's, we can actually let people do that because the data will be nicely anonymized and randomized, which is why we need to get that right.
Yeah, and also the security perspective where people should not be backtracking info as well. So we are keeping that in mind as well.
Emma, again, how are you making sure that you balance all this important security stuff with pumping out the new APIs?
It's okay. It's good, Emma. You're asking.
You asked for a question.
No, it's good actually. So this is why we are ensuring that we work with different team and collaborate, because it's not only the responsibility of development team to look at the different security aspects. We are not expert on that, and that's why we are making sure that we communicate with Matt Kalani and possibly going with IM team as well with regards to the data contracts. So there's full scope of collaboration with different teams. And it will be part of the API playbook. Once we come up with the standards that these are things that you have to be coming up, it will be fed into the playbook as well. So we are ensuring that any new API will have to follow those rules. We have done so many changes, so many new things in this particular project that it will be feeding into the new playbook. So the version 3 is going to be coming up soon. Yay!
And the bit that Mirella talked about, these two simple APIs, that gives us a foundation for everything going forward. I would say these long-lived service tokens, they're the things we have control over. We know which clients are going to be calling and that sort of thing. So we can control that. It's when it starts to spread out. This gives us a basis behind everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And also the focus of our project is not just to build platform APIs, it's to set up the whole platform. So that involves infrastructure. We've been doing a lot of work on that and secured it as per best security practices, and also data migration and now authorizers as well. So the good thing is we're quite a few developers. So what we tend to do is work in parallel on different streams, whether that's some people work on APIs, other people working on authorization. So it's not one of the things takes priority over the other.
Great. Any other questions?
Not Emma.
No, it's good actually. Emma is asking really good questions. So we're liking it.
Cool. Okay then. So as I say, the video will be posted up on Currents and wherever else it needs to go. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And, have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, Matt.
Bye. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.